Well, good morning, everybody. I wanted to go out here and take a little tour of the garden before it gets so hot today. It's already hot. Let me switch this around. I mean, stuff is all... I put some compost tea to my plants last night, or before dark. But I tell you, the sun is so hot. I mean, look at my poor tomato plants right there. Some of the leaves are still wilted down. But look at that. My basil. Look at all that basil coming up. I'm going to have a lot of plants of basil to put out in a little bit. My tomatoes, that's the rainbow tomatoes. And there's my pear tomatoes. And there's my squash. It's patty pan, and I think I got one or two of spaghetti squash. But yeah, I just wanted to give you a update. And look at there. I put a little bit of water in that pot last night, and still the leaves on that marigold is trying to look wilted. My poor moonflowers out there are wilted down already, and it's only like 10 o'clock, 10 a.m. My rose bushes look good, though. They don't mind the heat, as long as they get a little bit of water. My rose bushes out there along the property line, they're still looking good. But, you know, the shade helps them. And there's my cabbage coming back to life, even in the heat. You see my poor moonflowers? Look at that, how some of the leaves are burning up. And it's going to be over 102 all this coming week. I mean, there's a couple of days it's going to hit 105, 104. I think one day even 108. You see, those rose bushes are hanging in there. They're still little, but they're hanging in there. And that one. So if you live in an extreme hot, dry climate, get you some knockout roses. And as long as you keep a little bit of water to them, my crepe myrtle, my rose bush there, as long as you keep a little bit of water to them, they'll survive. You just can't let them completely dry out, because if the ground completely dries out, they will die. And my poor squash plant there is surviving, but it's in the shade part of the day. And as you can see, I've got a pot with a drip pan underneath that holds water, so it keeps moisture up in the soil. There's my cucumber, my melon, my squash. But yeah, I've got one of those trays that I put underneath, so it holds a couple of inches deep of water. I mean, it's not that much water with the pot sitting in it, but it's enough that it's a reservoir, and the dirt can actually absorb that water from the bottom of the pot, which keeps those plants in, you know, it keeps the plants watered. But see, my poor moonflowers, I mean, they're struggling, y'all. We just have not had any rain. And it's been so hot. There's the other rose bush. And here. And here, they're struggling. They're little. But they are surviving, and they're growing. One there. And here's the last one at the back, which has other flowers growing around it. And my wildflowers are just about done blooming, so I'll be cutting those down pretty soon. You know, I mowed the rest of the yard, and I left the wildflowers so they could drop seed, but they're almost ready to mow. I tell you what, this grass will survive if nothing does. The grass and the weeds. And my poor flowers around my bird bath are struggling. I mean, they're out in the hot sun, so that those pots dry out really fast. But you can see I do have some zinnias growing. They survived where the marigolds didn't out here. You can see what I'm talking about. Most of the wildflowers are going to seed. So I'll be able to cut those down pretty soon. See the roses, what I'm saying? These knockout roses, they love the heat. They love the sun. They just need a little water. I mean, not much. Once they get that big, you don't even have to worry about watering them anymore. Because those roots go down to China. I mean, they put down some deep roots. Those roots will go down and find water. And see, the smallest rose bushes are finally growing. Little white rose bush, and the other one's next to it. My clematis. Even in this heat, y'all. And those rose bushes, look how big they got. They love this spot. And I just give them a little bit of water once in a while, just enough to keep water to the roots. My okra. I've got another okra on there. It wasn't big enough to cut the other day. And my little rose bush down there is still poking through. I mean, it's trying to survive. I think it will. As long as I can keep at least a glass of water on it, you know, once in a while. And my Swiss chard's kind of loving these shade cloths, and my squash plant or zucchini as well. My leeks are kind of drooping, but I mean, you got to have water. And I got a notice from the water company saying that our water shortage or our water rationing, because we have plenty of water, they just can't pump it fast enough for everybody to use it. Look at there, y'all. I got melons. There's 2 of them there, about the size of a baseball. So I'm hoping that plant will survive until they get ripe. But see, this stuff here is in the shade all morning, all afternoon, basically. Well, there's only one part of the day when it's shaded a little, and that's when the sun is coming from like behind where I'm standing, and then it's shaded some. But my winter squash, I mean, it's looking kind of tattered a little bit. Some of the leaves are yellow, but that's to be expected with this heat. My okra plants are still doing good back here. My cabbage, can't see it, it's in there. And look where the winter squash is going. It's hooking itself to the cage of the cabbage right there. Here, let me put this down a second. I got to get my hair up. Now, what hadn't been that hot, but walking around the yard, it gets a little warm. So I'm just going to get my hair up off my neck. My neck's already wet. Yeah, in a couple of days I'll have some more okra to pick. And I'll be able to pick it by then. It'll be long enough. Since I put the insecticide out, that I won't have to worry about it. Oh, that feels so much better. I got my hair up. See that cabbage? Since I put the insecticide to it, it's come back to life because I had broke all that one over there too. But yeah, since I've done that, my winter squash, look at this. It's growing up on anything it can grow up on. And I'm just going to let it grow. I haven't actually seen a squash on it yet. I don't know when it's supposed to produce any. But should do it pretty soon. But my tomato plant there in my little bucket garden right here. Pepper plant and a tomato. I think that's a Tiny Tim. Another tomato plant. Pepper plants right there. Yeah, if I can keep them, if they survive through July, hit the end of July, I should be able to water my plants and not worry about the water bill or the water company or anything else. But there's my cucumber, and it's growing. I mean, look at it growing all right on up. And it was the smallest one. I've got a melon plant here, and it does have a little melon right there started. Look at that cucumber vine. There's a nice sized cucumber. You know what? I'm going to just go ahead and pick it. Because if it gets too hard, you can't eat it anyway. And I don't think there's that much insecticide in it. And look at this one. This one's growing better than any of them. Have to wrap it around the top so it doesn't fall. And look at here. Look at that cucumber. That one's coming with me because it's getting too big. So. And I thought I saw another one over here somewhere. Not sure where. There it is. See there? And there's another little one in here. I'm not going to pick it yet. Let it grow a couple more days. Ooh, there's another one. Look at that. Look at that cucumber. So that's four cucumbers this time off of this one vine that I see anyway. I'm usually overlooking them. And that squash plant's putting out some little squash, the little yellow ones. Pepper plant finally got up over the top of the bucket. And this, I don't know, I've been trying to keep plenty of water to it, but it doesn't like the hot sun. I mean, it's only getting morning sun, because in the afternoon it's shaded by the shade cloth we put up here. It shades all these buckets on this side in the afternoon. And look at the pepper. I got me a pretty little pepper. Look at that. I'm going to leave it another day or so. I'm not going to pick it yet. It's not quite big enough. I got to put my cucumbers down. Go over here in the shade and put them down. I don't want to put them in the sun. We'll put them over here on the porch, I think. That way I don't forget to take them inside when I end my video. Yeah, I thought about going to my son's house today, but I think I'm going to wait. And look at this. I mean, that tomato plant, that's one of the grape or cherry tomatoes. It's getting so tall. And the cucumber vine. I got to somehow get that back. Oh, and my pumpkin plant is just not surviving. That happens to me every year when I try to plant pumpkins. For some reason, the pumpkins don't like the heat. And I left a spoon in there the other day when I was planting stuff. Yeah, I thought about going to my son's today, but I think I'll wait. Maybe closer to 4th of July. That's a squash plant. See, aloe veras and cactus and stuff like that don't mind this heat. My insulin plant doesn't mind it since it's here in the shade. It's growing like crazy. You know, and that one, that's the one that sprouted up just from the roots. Since I moved it over here on this side of the porch, it gets more shade, so it likes it better. And my squash plant there is giving way. I don't know. I may not have gotten enough insecticide on that. I don't know, but it's holding on, but it's not looking good. That squash plant there gave way, but you can see my mandevilla is still thriving and it's growing. It hasn't bloomed yet. My wildflowers, not my wildflowers, but my zinnias and my marigolds are still looking good. And that poor tomato plant, I'm going to have to put a lead wire on it so it'll go over toward this arbor, because it's just hanging there, and it might get broken off in the wind if I don't go ahead and secure it up. But I'm going to have to keep watching this because it may have melons on it. It's got a lot of blooms, but it's growing on up with the clematis. Yeah, if it wasn't so hot and dry, my clematis and my mandevilla would look real good right now. It's just been too hot and dry on it. And when you have water rationing and you can't water stuff, that makes it even worse. This is still looking halfway decent. See, the marigolds, they don't like this 105 degree weather. The clematis doesn't mind it as long as it's in the shade and it gets water. Rose bushes here still look good that we planted. They're growing. That little one is kind of struggling, but it's still growing. My white rose bush. And there's the other one. Knockout rose. And you can see my stuff in my rock garden is still struggling. It's just because we have no rain and we have water rationing. I mean, if you can't keep your plants watered, they're going to struggle. So I can't wait till the end of July when we can start watering our yards and our plants the way we should, instead of just giving it enough to keep alive, you know. I mean, that poor squash plant there it's given up. That one gave up. But look at the cucumbers. The cucumber vines and the melon vines are still pretty much growing strong. But squash plants don't like the extreme heat. But they're still alive, and if I can keep them watered, they should be okay. And look at that ginger. Look how tall this ginger is. Look at this. I mean, it likes it. And you know, the ginger can get a little dry. That way it doesn't rot in the pot. But you do have to keep enough water to it to keep it alive. So when I notice the water, you know, the dirt is drying out, I put a little bit of water in there. And the leeks are the same way. They're kind of struggling because they're not getting enough water. And you can see this vine is already wilting down, and it's just past 10 o'clock in the morning. Pepper plants don't seem to mind it. My zinnias here don't like the heat. They don't, because I'm not able to keep enough water to them. This one over here, I guess the pot holds more moisture, but you can see the zinnia leaves are already wilting down, and it's, like I said, it's only about 10-15 this morning. Tomato plants are still growing, but they're struggling. They're trying to put out tomatoes. Look at the little tomatoes on it. I mean, it's trying to produce. It's just too hot on it. My tomatillo's already wilted down for today. My basil plant looks good. Tomatoes growing on up the arbor. Just need water, y'all. If you can't keep your plants watered in this heat, you're going to lose them. There's a little okra right there coming up out of the cinder block. And that marigold is getting so big it wants to fall over. And I don't want it to fall over in the path to be walked on. And I was looking in here, I think yesterday, and I found, look at this. This one needs to be coming up. Look at that beet, y'all. Isn't that a nice beet? It's dirty because I just pulled it out of the pot. And this one came up too, and I didn't intend for that one to come up. But it is producing beets. I don't want to pull any more of the other ones up. Well, I can get this one. It's a pretty good size, not too small. And it'll give room for the rest of them to grow. So there you go. I at least got a little harvest of beets. Lay them up over here. I'll have to take them in the house in a little bit. Didn't notice if any of them were big enough in here or not. I don't think they're big enough yet. You'll see a couple of small ones in there, but I don't want to do anything with them yet. Let's look down in here. I don't see any tops of any sticking up, so none of those are big enough yet. But the tomatoes, usually you can keep the tomatoes surviving if you can keep enough water to them, even this extreme heat. I don't know what's going to happen this coming week. But there's my cabbages in here coming back to life after I harvested all the leaves off of them. Oh, look at there. That's a tomato. And you know what? It's ripe enough to pick. So I'm picking that little, that'll be my first Roma tomato, y'all. My very first Roma tomato. And look up there at all of the green ones. And I should have left this, I guess, because it's really not big enough to have pulled, but you can see it's producing carrots. It'll be a while before I try pulling any of the rest, because you don't even see tops above the ground yet of the dirt. There's a big old okra that I've missed. And I know that one's going to be too tough probably to try to eat, so I'm just going to break it off and throw it down in the pot and let it go to seed, because it's too big. It got too big and tough to try to do anything with it. But that'll produce me. And look at those tomatoes. Those are those, I don't remember the name of them. But you see the way they're rippled? They're not completely round. They're supposed to do that. There's another one. But it'll be a pretty good sized tomato when it's at the point it's going to start getting ripe. And look at all those tomatoes. Those are Romas. They're still green. I got another one here that's getting ripe. But, you know, the bugs got in it. So, that's another one I just throw down in there and let it go to seed. And there's some more of those tomatoes that are kind of rippled. They're not completely round. And there's one over there. And they'll be a pretty good sized tomato when it's ripe. Oh, there's another okra that I let get too big. And I didn't bring anything out here to cut anything because I wasn't planning on harvesting anything, but that one's gotten too big, so get it off of there. And look at there. Those are my eggplants, y'all. Look at that. They're just giving up this year. They're not even going to try to grow. That's all right with me because I don't care about eggplant anyway. I got an eggplant. They're growing. And look at all the little peppers. This is our pepper garden, remember? Got weeds coming up. And that tomato don't mind the sun. It likes the pot it's in. Those are bell peppers. That tomato plant's thriving since I moved that marigold out of there. The watermelon gave up. I guess it's just too hot in this spot for it. Never did grow very well. Yeah, but you got to remember we've had extreme heat. And this is all of my walking onions. What I think I'm going to do is wait till the little seed onions here are dried so I can pick them. Then I'm going to harvest the onion and use it and replant it. Well, that's what I'm thinking of. Sunflower doesn't mind the heat over here. It's in a good pot. That marigold there doesn't. It's struggling. It's too hot for it. It's at this corner where it gets a lot of sun. And what I think I'm going to do is plant the basil. Maybe just use these dish pans to plant basil or peppers in when they're big enough. Look at there, I got a little cucumber growing there. Little bitty one back there. And I got this melon. It's little, it's trying to grow. Another pepper plant, or there's a couple of pepper plants in there. But they're blooming, so that means they're going to try to put out peppers. And that cucumber vine, instead of growing up, it's growing across and over. It's trying to get to the other pot over here. They have a mind of their own. They're going to grow where they want to, even if you got a trellis for them to go on. If you don't catch them in time and lead them in the opposite direction. Tomato plant there. See how it leans over toward the arbor or the trellis? There goes a bean. Foot-long bean, y'all. But that's why I planted more. And see, I got a tomato there. I don't know if I'm showing it to you. I can't tell. But it's right there. And the more of the foot-long beans that I just planted that are coming up. And they'll grow on up this side. They don't seem to mind the heat like those other type of beans do. My pepper plant there, that's a bell pepper. 2 bell pepper plants. One in the black pot and one in the other. But potatoes are just not doing good. I'm not counting on any harvest from them at all, but I'm about ready to pull them up and see what's going on. Plant something else there. I might put tomato plants or, you know, some of the pear tomatoes or the rainbow. May stick a basil in here in this pot on this side. That's a tomatillo here. And it's growing up to the arbor. My garlic and stuff don't look too good over here. It's just been too hot on it. But those little tomato plants, they're still hanging on. Look at that one loaded down with, where is it? Loaded down with tomatoes. And I can't tell what I'm showing you because of the sun. There it is. Look at that thing. That's a little tiny Tim, and it's just loaded down with tomatoes. And that tomato plant just growing. See, like I tell you, sometimes I have seeds that come up that I don't plant. And if it's something I like and I want it to grow, I'll leave it right where it came up. Because I figured if it came up there, that's where it wants to be. So I just leave it. In this heat, that's the best thing to do, because if you try pulling it up and moving it, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to survive. And I got a big old, had a big bundle of grass growing in there. And I dropped my tomato. My pepper plant gave up there. It just couldn't put roots down deep enough in that little shallow grow bag thing. Tomato plant likes it there. Peppermint. That rose bush. So again, if y'all live in a dry, hot environment, get you some knockout roses. See, these need water. They need water desperately. Because they're in the sun in the morning, and they get that hot morning sun, so they need more water than some of the other places do around the yard. Little tomatoes there. Those rose bushes are growing good and cinder block, because they can put their roots right down in the ground, whereas in the pots they can't unless it's got a big hole. If you got a big hole in the bottom of your pot, those roots will find its way right on out the bottom of the pot, and that's when they grow the best. I got my hands full, y'all. I'll have to come back after the beets. I just dropped something. Oh well. But see, when your plants are doing their best to grow and produce, and it's 102, 103, 4, 5, and get up to 108 degrees with no rain, you know you got some hardy plants. If they're struggling and they still try to produce for you. And look at there. I didn't even see those a while ago. I got 2 cucumbers growing there together. A third one, because there's a little one right there. But that's 2. They're not big enough to do anything with yet. And then that one there. And I'm drenched in sweat already, guys, and I've only been out here, what, a half hour? So you can imagine what it's like for the plants. That's why I take all my rainwater, I take my compost tea, I take my let me put this handful of stuff down in the house. Let's put it on the table. I have to go back and get the rest. I hate that transition. Here, maybe it'll be best if I put the tripod down a minute. Whew. I mean, just look at me. I got sweat just dripping off of me. And all I'm doing is walking around because it's so hot already. Go ahead and get these and stick them inside the door. Go out here and get my beets. It's hot, y'all. Well, there's my first beet harvest. And I know it's all covered in dirt. Some of that off before I take it inside. That'll be a little bitty small pot of beets for me to cook. And you know you can eat the beet tops. A lot of people don't like the beet tops, but you can eat them. These are kind of wilty and all, so I don't know if I'd try to cook them or not, but yeah, and I had to put my hair up. I'm just sweating like crazy. It's just dripping down my back, off my face, everywhere. So I'm going to go ahead and end my video. I got to get in the house, clean these off, wash them off, do something with them. And the leaves that, you know, I can't do anything with these wilted up leaves. So I'm going to put them in the compost. They'll make great compost for the other plants. So with that, I want to wish y'all a good day. Yeah, and just keep your fingers crossed that I keep my garden alive till the end of July when they lift our water restrictions, so I can keep my plants watered the way they should, and they'll survive and maybe start producing before the summer's over. So with that, eat what you grow. Please like, share, and subscribe to my videos. Y'all have a blessed day, and I'll see you on my next one. Bye now.